The Rijksmuseum, a Dutch national treasure and architectural masterpiece, was designed by Pierre Cuypers, who was not initially the first choice for its design. His vision for the museum was a fusion of Gothic and Renaissance styles, drawing inspiration from his background as the son of a church painter and his advocacy for Gothic architecture. The building's foundation required a staggering 8,000 piles to support its structure. The Night Watch room, specifically created to display Rembrandt's iconic painting, served as the heart of the museum. This space was meticulously crafted to enhance the viewing experience of the Night Watch. The Rijksmuseum's architecture is not only a shelter for art, but also a narrative of the Netherlands' cultural heritage, with over 30 galleries dedicated to the Dutch Golden Age, reflecting the era's prominence in trade, science and the arts. Cuypers' design cleverly incorporated elements that highlighted the Dutch Golden Age, ensuring that the museum itself became a canvas showcasing the zenith of Dutch art and architecture. The Rijksmuseum stands as a symbol of the Low Countries' rich artistic and architectural traditions, inviting visitors to step into a space where history and creativity converge. The Dutch Golden Age, spanning the 17th century, was a period of remarkable prosperity and artistic achievements in the Netherlands. This era saw a flourishing of the arts, science and trade, coinciding with the country's newfound independence from Spanish rule. Artisans and artists of the time such as Rembrandt van Rijn, Johannes Vermeer and Frans Hals revolutionized the art world with their contributions to what became known as Dutch realism. This movement was characterized by a focus on everyday life, detailed landscapes and still life paintings that captured the essence of Dutch society. The Dutch Golden Age was a period of unprecedented economic growth, cultural development and colonial expansion, coincided with the 80 Years' War. This juxtaposition of prosperity and conflict may seem paradoxical, but it can be understood through the lens of the era's unique circumstances. The war, which lasted from approximately 1568 to 1648, was rooted in religious and political tensions, as the predominantly Protestant northern provinces sought autonomy from the Catholic Habsburg Empire. Despite the ongoing conflict, the Dutch Republic managed to thrive due to several factors. The war itself stimulated military and naval innovations, and the Dutch were able to capitalize on their strategic geographic positions for trade. Moreover, the decline of Spanish power and the disruption of traditional trade routes allowed the Dutch to gain control over lucrative trade networks, particularly in the East Indies. The Republic's decentralized political structure also fostered a climate of relative religious tolerance and intellectual freedom, which attracted skilled immigrants, including merchants and artisans, further bolstering the economy. The Dutch pioneered financial innovations such as the stock exchange and joint stock companies like the VOC, Dutch East India Company, which facilitated the pooling of capital for large-scale ventures. These economic advancements, combined with a flourishing art scene and scientific progress, defined the Golden Age. Thus, the Dutch experience during this period illustrates how adversity and prosperity can coexist, leading to a vibrant society and robust economy despite the backdrop of war. Michiel de Ruyter, a renowned Dutch admiral, is best remembered for his audacious maritime operation against the English during the Second Anglo-Dutch War. In June 1667, de Ruyter led a daring expedition up the River Medway, which culminated in the Battle of Chatham. The bold maneuver not only startled the people of London, but also dealt a significant blow to the English by capturing their pride, the AMS Royal Charles. The raid on the Medway was a masterstroke of naval strategy and execution, showcasing de Ruyter's exceptional leadership and the Dutch Navy's prowess. The operation began with the Dutch fleet capturing the forts at Sheerness, followed by a strategic advance into the River Medway to confront English fleet at Chatham. The Dutch forces under de Ruyter's command bombarded English fortifications with cannon fire, burned or captured several warships, and achieved remarkable feat of towing away the English flagship. The event was not just a military victory, but also a psychological one, as it exposed the vulnerability of the English defenses and left an indelible mark on the collective psyche of the English populace. The aftermath of the raid was politically disastrous for England, leading to a hastened end to the war and the signing of the Treaty of Breda, which was favorable to the Dutch. The raid on Medway stands as one of the most significant naval operations in history and solidified Michiel de Ruyter's legacy as one of the most skilled naval commanders of all time. In science, the Dutch Golden Age was equally prolific. Figures like Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the father of microbiology, and Christian Huygens, a prominent mathematician and physicist, made groundbreaking discoveries that propelled the scientific community forward. The period was also marked by significant advancements in astronomy, with scientists such as Jan Swammerdam contributing to the study of insect and human anatomy. Johan de Witt, born into a well-established family in 1625, rose to become one of the most influential statesmen of the Dutch Golden Age. His father's opposition to the House of Orange shaped Johan's political stance, leading him to adopt a staunchly Republican view. The wit's brilliance in mathematics and government saw him ascend to the position of Councillor Pensionary of Holland at the young age of just 28, when he skillfully navigated the complex political landscape of the time. However, Johan's tenure was not without its challenges. His brother Cornelis also played a significant role in the political arena, but his fate took a dark turn when he was accused of treason against Willem III of Orange. Following military defeats against England, France and German states, the De Witt brothers were scapegoated for the Republic's misfortunes. And in a tragic culmination of events, both Johan and Cornelis were brutally lynched by a mob in The Hague. This was the Dutch Golden Age, a time when the small nation became a colossal force in global trade, thanks to two powerful companies, the Dutch East India Company and the Dutch West India Company. The VOC, established in 1602, was the world's first multinational corporation and the first company to issue stocks. It had a monopoly on the lucrative spice trade with Asia, and its ships sailed the high seas to bring back treasures that were the envy of Europe. The WIC, the WC, or West India Company, founded in 1621, focused on trade in the Atlantic, dealing in commodities like sugar, tobacco, and even engaging in the transatlantic slave trade, while also colonizing parts of the Americas. These companies were the engines of the Dutch economy. But this golden age was not to last forever. The very success of the VOC and the West Indian Company sowed the seeds of their downfall. The companies faced fierce competition from other European powers like England and France, who were eager to get their share of the global trade pie. The Dutch also fought costly wars to protect their trade routes and colonies, draining their resources. The rampjaar, or disaster year of 1672, saw the Dutch Republic attacked by France, England, and two German princes, bringing it to the brink of collapse. The end of the Golden Age was a slow decline rather than a sudden fall. East India Company and the West India Company, once symbols of Dutch power, became bloated and corrupt, and their monopolies stifled innovation. The vast wealth they had created led to a speculative bubble, and when it burst, it caused an economic crisis. The final blow came in the late 18th century, when the British seized many Dutch colonies during the Napoleonic Wars, signaling the end of the Netherlands as a major colonial power. Yet, the legacy of the Dutch Golden Age lives on. The art, science, and ideas from that era continue to influence the world today. Financial innovations of the East India Company are still with us in the form of modern stock exchanges and corporations, and the story of the rise and fall of the Dutch Golden Age serves as a lesson in the ebb and flow of history, reminding us that empires rise and fall, but their contributions can endure for centuries. So when we think of the Dutch Golden Age, we remember not just the wealth and not just the power, but also the enduring impact of its cultural and scientific achievements. Imagine a time when the world was still full of mysteries and the sea was a vast, uncharted territory. This was the era of daring voyages and grand adventures. In the 17th century, the Dutch were at the forefront of this maritime exploration, and one of their heroes was Piet Hein. He was a clever admiral who managed to capture a fleet filled with silver, which was as good as a treasure in those days. This fleet belonged to the Spanish, who were not too happy about losing it, as you can imagine. Now, this event was huge because it meant that the Dutch had more money to support their country and to continue their expeditions. The VOC set up shop in several key locations. India, where they traded fine textiles and spices. China, where they exchanged silver for silk and tea. Ceylon, which is now known as Sri Lanka, for its precious cinnamon. And even Japan, where they were the only Europeans allowed to trade for a long, long time. They operated from a tiny island called Dejima, which was the only window Japan had to the Western world for over 200 years. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The VOC also had a darker side, as they were involved in things that we consider very, very, very wrong today, like the slave trade. They were also pretty tough on the people in the places they controlled, which is something we call colonial exploitation today. While they were great at making money and exploring, they also made a lot of mistakes that affected people, many people's lives. In the end, the story of Piet Hein and the VOC is a mix of bravery, adventure, smart business, and some not so great moments. It's a chapter that teaches us about the good and the bad of exploring the unknown and reminds us that every story has many sides to it. So when you think about these Dutch sailors and traders, remember that they were a bit like us, trying to make their way in the world, sometimes doing great things and sometimes making big mistakes. During the Dutch Golden Age, a period of great economic prosperity and cultural achievement in the 17th century, Amsterdam's merchants amassed considerable wealth, which was often reflected in the luxurious items they adorned their houses and homes with, such as clocks, tapestry, plates, and mirrors. This wealth was in part a result of the Netherlands' extensive trade networks, which included the trafficking and enslavement of people from Africa and Asia. The prevailing Christian beliefs among these merchants were largely shaped by Protestantism, especially Calvinism. The Dutch Reformed Church was the dominant religious institution, and its teachings often intersected with the economic activities of the time, including the justification of slavery. The concept of predestination in Calvinism, which posits that God has predetermined the salvation or damnation of individuals, was sometimes used to rationalize the social hierarchy and the subjugation of non-European peoples. This belief system contributed to a sense of superiority and entitlement among the Dutch, which was reflected in their attitudes toward God and their treatment of others, including those they enslaved. However, it is important to note that there was also a degree of religious tolerance in the Dutch Republic, which allowed for a variety of Christian denominations as well as other religions to coexist. This tolerance did not necessarily translate into egalitarian attitudes towards all humans, as the wealth of the Dutch Golden Age was built on the backs of enslaved Africans and exploited Asians. The merchants' attributes towards these groups were often dehumanizing, viewing them as commodities rather than fellow human beings with an inherent dignity and worth. The legacy of this period is complex, as it holds both the remarkable cultural achievements of the Dutch Golden Age and the brutal realities of colonialism and slavery. In recent years, there has been a growing recognition of this duality, and efforts have been made to confront and acknowledge the darker aspects of this history. As someone who is interested in history, it is crucial to present a balanced view of the past, recognizing not only the contributions and advancements of the era, but also critically examining the moral and ethical implications of the actions of the time. This approach allows me to understand the multifaceted nature of history and the ways in which it continues to shape our present and future.